This storm is often referred to in meteorology as the 1993 superstorm, or the 93 storm of the century. It occurred from March 12 to 14, 1993, and was an exceptionally powerful bomb cyclone. Its central pressure was extremely low, observed below 960 millibars in some areas, and its impact stretched from the U.S. Gulf Coast all the way to Canada, with 26 states in the contiguous U.S. severely affected. Record snowfall was recorded. For instance, parts of Tennessee received over 1 meter 3 feet of snow, and Atlanta, Georgia, received 35 cm 14 inches, compared to its annual average of about 5 cm to inches. The storm also triggered rare southern blizzard conditions, severe thunderstorms, tornadoes, and coastal storm surge, causing widespread damage from Alabama to Florida. Impact and historical significance. The storm caused approximately 270 fatalities, many from hypothermia, heart attacks, or traffic accidents. Economic losses were estimated at $5 to $6 billion. 1993 USD. Over 10 million customers lost power. Transportation was completely paralyzed, and multiple major airports were closed for days. Due to its scale, intensity, and vast impact, it was rated by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration (NOAA) as one of the most powerful mid-latitude cyclones of the 20th century in the United States. Its profound impact made it a deeply ingrained memory for a generation of Americans. Tonight, the wind howls down the empty highways of memory, whispering of a time when nature seemed at war with the world. It was March of 1993, a month that would be remembered forever, the moment America ground to a halt beneath a white fury. Newspapers called it the storm of the century. But for those who lived it, it felt more like a waking dream. A storm so vast, so merciless, it seemed to have a heartbeat of its own. Before we begin, take a deep breath. Wrap yourself in your blanket. Let the gentle hum of the night wrap around you. If you're watching in America, perhaps the evening is still young, and the sound of rain tapping your window is a quiet echo of this story. For those of you listening in Europe, it may already be deep night, with moonlight perched on your roof. Wherever you are, wherever you're from, welcome. Make sure you're comfortable, perhaps with a warm drink nearby, the lights dimmed, your phone on silent. This story is designed to unfold slowly, guiding your thoughts toward calm even as the storm gathers around us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Tell me where you're listening from. Now, let's journey back to that cold March evening, when clouds rolled over the Atlantic like mountains, and the air began to taste of snow. At first, it was just a whisper, a strange stillness over the Gulf of Mexico, where the air grew heavy with anticipation. Fishermen off the coast of Florida noticed it first. The water, usually choppy and restless, grew eerily calm. Birds circled lower than usual, their wings catching the scent of something vast and unseen. Down in weather stations across the south, glowing radar screens began to flicker, the colors deepening with every hour. Green turned to yellow, yellow to orange to deep, pulsing crimson, whispering warnings. Meteorologists leaned closer, their voices hushed. A low-pressure system was forming, with an intensity no chart they'd drawn in decades could match. This wasn't just a storm. Convergence. Frigid Arctic air plunging south, colliding head-on with warm, tropical moisture surging north. Nature's perfect, terrible equation. In small towns across Alabama and Georgia, life carried on as usual. Families gathered for dinner, unaware of what was brewing miles above their heads. Radios murmured softly, talking of a chance of flurries overnight, maybe a dusting by morning. No one could have imagined the scale of what was coming. Not yet. As evening fell, temperatures plunged. The first snowflakes began to drift down, shy, wispy, innocent. But within hours, The snow thickened, spinning under street altered like ghostly ribbons. The wind began to sing its low building sound, a sound that penetrated every shutter, every chimney, every sleeping house. And high above, far away, the heart of the storm was taking shape, vast, spiraling, beautiful in its deadly symmetry. By dawn, the horizon was gone. The world dissolved into white, sky and earth becoming one seamless, vast blankness. In Birmingham, Alabama, a hush fell over the streets, broken only by the slight crackle of ice forming on power lines. The air smelled metallic sharp, as though it carried the taste of snow long before it fell. Families awoke to find windows blurred with frost, a light dim as a ghost. Somewhere, a radio hummed with static. Major winter storm inbound. Travel not advised. Not many paid much mind. The South wasn't used to blizzards like this. People smiled at the thought of snowmen, snow angels, the rare joy of white covering their lawns. But then, the wind began to strengthen. It started as a low groan, like breath through hollow wood, then climbed into something fierce, shaking shutters, whipping snow into furious swirls. By mid-morning, trees began to bend, branches bowing under the sudden weight of ice. Cars left overnight in driveways vanished beneath smooth white mounds. Children pressed their faces against windows, excitement slowly turning to awe. The snow wasn't fun anymore. It was relentless, constant, heavy, endless. Sovereign Atlanta, highways iced over within hours. Thousands of travelers found themselves stranded, their headlights glowing faintly behind curtains of snow. Gas stations filled with shivering drivers seeking warmth, while grocery stores saw bread, milk, and batteries vanish from shelves. The power flickered once, twice, then whole neighborhoods went dark. All that was left was the wind, wild and unceasing, sweeping through the woods like ancient souls. In those hours of silence, the true sound of the storm began to emerge. It wasn't loud. It was patient. It whispered of endurance, of isolation, and of how small and fragile the world could seem when faced with the vastness of nature's will. And as the white veil grew thicker, one thing became clear: this was no ordinary snowstorm. This was something the country had never seen before. By nightfall, the storm had taken full hold of the South. What had started as a curious snowfall now roared like a beast unleashed, swallowing cities one by one. The wind screamed against rooftops, tearing shingles away like pages from a forgotten book. The snow spun so thick, it became a living thing, a wouldering white that would swallow anyone who dared step outside. Inside dimly lit houses, candles flickered in the cold. Power lines, burdened by ice, snapped and fell with soft explosions, plunging entire counties into darkness. The world outside glowed faintly, pale and unreal, like the surface of another planet. In a farmhouse on the outskirts of Chattanooga, an elderly couple huddled by the fireplace. They had seen many winters, but never one like this. Snow piled against the door inch by inch, until the world outside seemed buried under a silent grave. The woman whispered prayers, her words mingling with the crackle of the fire. The man just watched the storm through a small frosted pane, his breath fogging in the cold. Miles away in downtown Atlanta, the faint wail of emergency sirens could be heard through the blizzard's howl. Firefighters trudged through snow up to their chests, rescuing stranded motorists. The city, unaccustomed to ice, was paralyzed. Buses froze mid-route. Streetleton glowed dimly through veils of frost. Children slept under extra blankets, while parents listened to radios hoping for news, for assurance that it would all be over soon. But every station told the same story: the blizzard was intensifying, stretching north, swallowing the Appalachians, and heading straight for the heart of the East Coast. The night deepened, the candles burned low. The air grew colder, and in that vast silence, broken only by the occasional groan of a tree, eating way to ice somewhere in the distance, people began to feel something ancient stirring within them, an odd respect for nature's sheer power, and a humbling truth: all they could do was wait. Morning came, but it brought no light. The sky remained a dull, churning gray, heavy with snow that refused to stop. Highways, once filled with the hum of engines and the rhythm of travel, were now buried under drift smaller than the cars themselves. The outlines of trucks, buses, and sedans formed ghostly shapes beneath the white, like relics of a vanished world. Along Interstate 65, the wind had sculpted massive snow waves, cresting and dipping over the asphalt, erasing every line, every sign, every familiar marker. Stranded travelers wrapped themselves in blankets and coats, huddling for warmth as engines sputtered and died. The sounds of idling vehicles vanished one by one, until only the storm remained, a deep, constant roar that filled the emptiness. From the Carolinas to Kentucky, rescue teams fought their way through near -0 visibility. Their headlights diffused into halos and vanished just feet ahead. Snowplows worked tirelessly, steel blades clanging against hidden obstacles buried under ice. Every few miles, they stopped to pull people from their cars. Tired, frightened faces illuminated by the flicker of amber lights. In small towns, communities began to form makeshift shelters. Churches opened their doors, lanterns flickering in hallways, blankets laid out on floors. Strangers shared hot coffee brewed on camp stoves, their breath misting in the air as they spoke in hushed tones about where they were when the power went out. Radio announcers spoke in low, steady voices, a calming presence in the chaos. Stay indoors, stay warm, help your neighbor. And all the while, the snow kept falling. Thick, endless, relentless. It muffled every sound, silenced every movement, until even the wind seemed to recede into a deep, rhythmic quiet. Above the buried roads and silent highways, the sky turned vast, indifferent, filled with the light of the storm. By the second night, the storm had reached its full fury. From the Gulf Coast to the Great Lakes, a single massive system stretched for 1,000 miles, spinning like a living thing across the sky. Weather satellites captured its enormous white swirl, a perfect spiral, the kind seen once in a century. Meteorologists whispered in awe. The entire eastern United States was now under siege. In the Appalachians, snow fell so heavily that houses vanished beneath it. Roofs sagged, porches collapsed, power lines disappeared into white chasms. The mountains, usually alive with birdsong and the sound of streams, fell into silence. The air was still, save for the groan of wind through the woods, low and mournful, like the voice of the storm itself. Travelers who had sought shelter in mountain lodges awoke to find doors frozen shut. Windows were buried. Some built fires in fireplaces, the flames flickering weakly against the cold. Others just sat and watched in disbelief as the storm consumed the world outside. Time lost meaning. Hours blurred together into an endless rhythm of wind, ice, and snow. Down in the valleys, rivers began to freeze over, their surfaces turning to thick glass, reflecting the pale, shifting light. Wildlife vanished into burrows, barns, and caves, sensing the enormity of what was unfolding. In Florida, the impossible was happening. Snowflakes danced among palm trees and beaches, dusting them in a fine white powder. The warm air vanished, replaced by a chill that stretched all the way to the sea. Fishermen stared out at the gray Atlantic, waves cresting with foam, the horizon disappearing into snow. For millions across the country, the blizzard had become a constant presence, more than a storm, a world of its own. Day and night melted together under the same dim, white light. Conversations grew softer, movements slower. People began to speak less, preserving breath in the cold. And yet, in that silence, something unexpected began to grow, a shared sense of endurance. Neighbors checked on one another. Families gathered by firelight. Strangers offered warmth to one another in dark rooms. It was as though, in the frozen heart of the storm, humanity itself was being rediscovered. Fragile, flickering, but burning brightly all the same. The third night came quietly, too quietly. The air had a strange heaviness to it, as though sound itself had frozen. Across the eastern United States, people huddled under layers of blankets, watching their breath form pale clouds in their homes. The storm outside no longer raged. It persisted, steady, unbroken, endless. In the foothills of the Appalachians, a family of 5 sat by the faint glow of a small fire. The father had sealed the windows with towels and newspaper, trying to hold in the warmth. The mother melted snow in a pot, brewing tea that tasted faintly of ash. The children dozed against one another, too tired to speak. Outside, the snow was now higher than the window panes. The house creaked with every gust, sighing under the weight of the storm. Further north, in Pennsylvania, the world looked like an unfinished painting. Vast fields were erased by snowdrifts, barns half-minus buried, fence lines vanishing into white. The only movement came from the snow itself, shifting, unswirling like breath. A truck driver, stranded on a turnpike, watched the snow pile up against his windshield, the world outside fading to gray. He turned on the radio, but there was only static. He whispered to himself, just to hear a voice. And yet, within that isolation, there was a heartbreaking beauty. This world, stripped of noise and motion, had become pure and dreamlike. The moon, hidden behind clouds, cast a faint glow, just enough to make the snow glimmer like fields of glass. The wind slowed to a gentle hum, and for a moment, everything seemed at peace. In a small town in Tennessee, church bells rang out once, not for worship, but as a signal to gather. Dozens of people trudged through the snow, seeking warmth in an old stone building. They shared stories by candlelight, talking of winters past, loved ones far away, and the faith that flickered even in the darkest cold. Laughter returned, soft and weary, but warm enough to fill the air. Through that long night, humanity clung to something stronger than the storm, hearts like tiny lanterns flickering in the vast frozen arc. When morning came again, it brought no sun, only a faint brightening of the sky, a ghostly silver glow behind the curtain of clouds. The storm had slowed, but not stopped. It breathed now, softer but deeper, as though gathering its final strength before finally letting go. Out in the countryside, roofs sagged under feet of accumulated snow. Icicles hung from eaves like glass fangs, long and heavy, glinting in the pale light. Trees bowed low, branches frozen solid, each one encased in ice, capturing the weak dawn light and scattering it like crystal. The world looked so delicate, too beautiful, too fragile to touch. In small towns and frozen suburbs, people began to venture out cautiously. Doors were forced open with shoulders and shovels, creaking against the packed snow that had sealed them. And when they stepped outside, the silence was overwhelming. No engine sounds, no bird song, only the whisper of wind over snow. Eamon in North Carolina stood where his front porch had been, staring out at the world around him. His car was gone, completely buried. His mailbox was just a bump in the white. But beyond the destruction, he saw something almost sacred in the quiet. The storm had erased everything, the noise, the hurry, the endless motion of life, leaving only stillness and endless snow. Down the street, children emerged, eyes wide, faces wrapped in scarves too big for them. They touched the snow with reverence, laughing softly, as though afraid to break the silence. Somewhere a dog barked, a distant, muted sound, the first real noise of the morning. Whoa! In the mountains, search teams set out at dawn. Their snowmobiles carved narrow paths through drifts taller than a person, engines roaring in the deep quiet. They checked cabins, cars, and barns, calling out names that were quickly swallowed by the cold air. And high above them, the clouds began to thin, just a little. For the first time in days, a faint beam of sunlight broke through, casting gold upon the white. It was weak, distant, but it was enough. People stopped and looked up, eyes watering at the brightness. The storm was still there, lingering, but dawn had finally come. By late morning, the air grew still, as though the storm had drawn one last breath and then fallen asleep. The wind ceased. The snow, though deep and heavy, no longer moved. It rested, layered and perfect, blanketing the earth like a great white quilt. Those who had waited for this moment began to step outside, their boots sinking deep into the drifts with soft, muffled sounds. The world felt strange, remade, almost holy. Every movement seemed to echo in the silence. Every footprint broke a silence that felt 1,000 years old. In a small Virginia town, A woman named Clara pushed open her door to find her porch half minus buried in snow. She smiled faintly, the cold air stinging her cheeks as she inhaled the sharp, clean scent. Her breath formed silvery puffs, mingling with the soft morning light. The trees around her glittered with ice, their branches encrusted with frost. When the wind stirred them gently, they chimed like distant church bells. Out in the country, smoke began to rise again, thin gray tendrils curling from chimneys. The faint scent of burning wood drifted on the air, bringing the first real hint of warmth in days. Neighbors called to one another across the snow, their voices bright with relief, laughter mixing with disbelief at the transformed world. Power crews trudged through knee-minus steep snow, hauling cables and poles, faces red from the cold but determined. They worked without hurry, not from fatigue, but out of respect for the quiet around them. The hum of machinery would return soon enough, but for now, the silence was a kind of peace. Children began to play again, digging tunnels and forts into deep snow banks, their joy rising into the air like the song of spring itself. For them, the storm had already become a story, one they would tell with wonder someday, voices half-minus spooked, half-minus proud. The sun climbed higher, weak and pale, casting a soft gold over the endless white. Every rooftop glistened, every branch shimmered, every field gleamed like glass. It was as though the entire country had been remade, fragile, frozen, waiting to wake. As the day unfolded, the world began to reveal what the storm had left behind. Beneath the shimmering beauty was the quiet aftermath. Stories written in the snow, in the silence, in the still breaths of those who had endured. In the Appalachian foothills, power lines drooped like silver ropes coated in ice, glinting in the weak sunlight. Abandoned cars lay half-minus buried along winding roads, windshields frosted opaque with white, each one silently telling a story of someone trying to get home. Of a journey halted mid-minus way. In the quiet, people began to dig slowly, methodically shoveling paths through the snow to reach one another. The sound of metal scraping ice echoed faintly between houses, the rhythm of life beginning again. From porch to porch voices carried, muffled but bright, "Are you all right? We've got to on. Come warm up by the fire." In a small Kentucky town, a group of neighbors gathered around a generator that still worked. They brewed coffee on a camp stove, passing steaming cups between gloved hands. The warmth passed between them, not just from the drinks, but from the closeness, from the simple act of being together after so much isolation. Elsewhere, in the Tennessee countryside, a boy wandered with his dog into an open field. The air was so still, he could hear the soft crunch of every step. The dog leapt through the snow banks, sending flakes splashing into the gold air. The boy stopped and looked up. The clouds were parting, slow and solemn, revealing a vast expanse of blue. It was the first clear sky he had seen in days. And in that moment, he felt a strange ache of awe, the kind of terror and wonder only nature can inspire. The storm had taken so much, but it had given this, to this Toyot, and the reminder that life, even when buried, always finds a way to rise again. From coast to coast, the echoes of the blizzard lingered. In the high snow banks, in the frozen rivers, in the distant hum of returning generators, in the fragile laughter making its way back into the air, the monster storm had passed. But its memory would linger, soft and lasting, inscribed in the snow, like a whisper from the earth itself. By the fourth day, the storm's spell began to break. Roads that had vanished beneath mountains of snow were slowly rediscovered. The great white silence that held the nation in its frozen grip began to crack, piece by piece, and across the land, the rhythm of life tentative fragile began to stir again. In cities from Atlanta to Pittsburgh, the first sounds of returning echoed through the cold air, the distant rumble of snowplows, the steady scrape of shovels, and the creak of doors opening for the first time in days. The world felt trod new, as if civilization itself was waking from a long, strange dream. Morning light spilled over rooftops and treetops, bathing everything in a golden haze. Meltwater dripped from eaves, forming little streams that hissed softly as they met the snow below. Birds, silent since the storm's first day, returned one by one, their faint calls echoing in the crystalline air. The simple sound of life returning lifted hearts, even as the cold still stung the skin. In small towns, Local radio stations crackled back to life. "This is WKLM. We're back on the air, folks. Stay safe, stay warm, check on your neighbors." The voice was weary but warm, familiar. The kind of voice that reminded people the worst was finally over. Families emerged from dimly lit houses, blinking at the brightness. They looked around, taking stock of the damage, yes, but also of the strange beauty left behind. Snowdrifts glittered like dunes in a pale desert. Trees shimmered with diamond minus like frost. The world was scarred, but breathtaking. In a small Georgia diner, one of the first places to get power back, the smell of frying eggs and fresh coffee filled the air. Truckers, line workers, and townsfolk crowded around steaming plates, speaking in hushed tones. Some spoke of how close they'd come to losing hope. Others just stared out the window, lost in thought. But each, in their own way, felt the same gratitude. They had witnessed something immense, something that reminded them of nature's wrath and their own resilience. And far above, from satellites circling the Earth, the storm's great spiral finally unraveled, dissolving into the Atlantic, leaving only thin trails of cloud in its wake like the ghost of a giant that had moved on. For the first time in nearly a week, the country breathed out. By mid-minus morning, the full scope of the storm's damage began to reveal itself. Landscapes that had once been familiar now seemed sculpted by an artist with a frostman-stipped hand, roads erased, fields leveled, forests encased in ice. Everything looked both fragile and eternal, a strange combination that stirred awe in anyone who stepped outside. Out in the Alabama countryside, farmers trudged through knee-high steep drifts. Horses and cattle huddled in barns, their breath forming mist in the icy air. A farmer ran a gloved hand over a fence buried under 4 feet of snow, feeling the cold bite through his jacket. And yet, even here in the hardship, there was beauty. Ice-laden branches glittered like natural chandeliers along snow-dusted pastures. Down south in Atlanta, city streets began to reappear. Cars, still stranded along highways, now looked like frozen relics of the storm, half-buried in snow banks. People moved carefully in boots and heavy coats, leaving fresh tracks in the white. Shopkeepers cleared doorways, their faces flushed from effort and cold, smiling at neighbors and strangers alike. Rivers that had begun to freeze under the storm's icy grip buzzed with life again. Cracks appeared in the ice, water flowing secretly beneath. An occasional splash or a distant bird call reminded everyone that this world, though changed, was not broken. In smaller towns, children returned to the snow with wonder instead of fear. Snow tunnels and forts were rebuilt, laughter echoing faintly in the still air. They made snow angels in the smoothest patches, leaving fleeting imprints of humanity on the storm's vast canvas. Even the wind seemed gentler now, whispering through streets and woods with a softer tone. It no longer shivdered o'er. It just moved like a gentle sigh of relief brushing over frozen surfaces. In every heart, there was a quiet recognition the world had been altered, yes, but life, small and tenacious, went on, blooming in the vastness of the white. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, the snow revealed the delicate traces of human endurance etched into the landscape. Footprints crisscrossed small towns, forming a map of temporary journeys through the frozen quiet. Half-buried, jagged tire tracks told the stories of cars that had dared the storm, some reaching destinations, others stranded halfway. In a quiet Vermont village, an elderly couple walked slowly through the snowbanks, leaning on each other for warmth and support. Each step was measured, deliberate, leaving clear impressions behind. They paused to look at a dead branch coated in thick ice, shimmering in the weak light. The woman smiled softly, the sound almost musical in the snow silence. "It's like walking through a dream," she whispered. Children in a nearby field discovered their own frozen stories. They built forts and tunnels, sculpting shapes out of icicles and snow blocks that glittered in the sunlight. Their voices rose in small bursts of joy, piercing the otherwise deep quiet, reminding the adults around them that life was resilient, playful, unbroken. Along suburban streets, neighbors began helping each other clear pathways. Shovels scraped against packed snow, the rhythm of work echoing faintly between houses. Conversation was sparse but warm. "Are you all right? Need help with that drift?" The words carried the weight of shared experience. Even in the hardship, there was companionship, a quiet solidarity in the simple act of surviving together. As the sky slowly brightened, the snow itself seemed to settle into a new pattern. Snowdrifts formed graceful curves, like waves frozen at their crest. Icicles hung from rooftops like delicate chandeliers, catching stray sunlight and refracting it into tiny rainbows. It was a transformed landscape, both harsh and enchanting, a reminder of the storm's power and the patience and resilience required to endure it. All the while, the country began to move forward, step by cautious step, with both weariness and wonder. As time passed, the silence that had blanketed towns and countryside began to give way once more to sound. The first hints were subtle. The distant hum of a generator, the scrape of a shovel against hard snow, the low murmur of neighbors talking to one another. Each tiny sound carried weight, a sign that the world was waking from the long, frozen slumber the storm had imposed. In New England, rooftops groaned as snow began to slide off in slow waves, echoing faintly in the quiet. Children's laughter pierced the crisp air as they ran through snow tunnels, snowballs flying in the pale light. Their bright, unafraid voices, like little sparks, reignited warmth on land that had been silenced by ice for so long. Along highways, the sound of snowplows returned, rhythmic, metallic, reassuring. Drivers navigated carefully along newly cleared roads, tires crunching on fresh snow, a solid, almost musical note in the otherwise ethereal landscape. Emergency personnel called out directions, helping travelers navigate what had once been impassable white zones. Even nature found its voice again. Birds returned, hopping to peck at whatever food they could find. Water trickled in melting ice, little streams gurgling softly along the edges of frozen rivers. The wind, once a howling fury, now whispered gently through the trees, stirring branches laden with shimmering frost. In small towns, people stopped to listen, feeling the return of sound as tangible evidence of survival. From porches, from streets, from open fields, there was a shared recognition the world, though changed, was alive again. As the day wore on, this awakening of sound carried a quiet lesson that even after the most relentless silence, life could find its voice, patient and persistent, ready to speak again. By late afternoon, the sun had climbed high enough to reveal every frozen detail the blizzard had left behind. Snow, still deep and pure, glittered like crushed diamonds in the weak, pale sunlight. Icicles hung from every eave, long and crystalline, catching stray light and refracting it into little prisms that danced on walls and snow banks. Out in the Pennsylvania countryside, a man paused beside a cleared path to stare at a tree whose branches were thickly coated in ice. Each limb curved gracefully, the ice glinting like glass, fragile and beautiful. When the wind stirred, the branches swayed slightly, creating a soft, tinkling melody that filled the air. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the music of the aftermath wash over him. Children, drawn back to the snow, discovered the joy of sliding on patches of ice, laughter bursting like splashes in the empty fields. They built sculptures, stacking snow and ice into delicate towers, their small fingers shaping forms that glittered in the sunlight. Each creation, though temporary, held a fleeting magic, a testament to life continuing amid the storm's remains. In towns, the world seemed transformed into a crystal kingdom. Streetlights reflected off icy sidewalks and puddles that mirrored the sky above. Every object, mailboxes, fences, parked cars, was dusted with a layer of frost, softening its edges, making even ordinary things glow with an ethereal light. People moved slowly, carefully, as if not wanting to disturb the fragile beauty. Conversations were hushed, smiles gentle. The air was thick with reverence, a shared acknowledgement of what had passed and what had survived. Even in the hardship, even after nights of cold isolation, the storm had left a reminder that within destruction, there is always a glimmer of beauty. And in that fragile, shimmering world, hope began to bloom again. As evening approached, the nation's first tentative movements through the deep snow became more purposeful. The paths cut by emergency workers, neighbors and travelers now formed networks across towns, suburbs, and rural landscapes, a patchwork of human perseverance, stitched into the frozen earth. In North Carolina, a young mother guided her children along one such path, the snow crunching softly under their boots in a reassuring rhythm. Each step was considered, careful, but filled with determination. Her children pointed at icicles that sparkled like chandeliers on fences, their small faces alight with wonder. The mother smiled, knowing that even after the storm's fury, they were creating new memories forged in endurance and shared discovery. Further north, on a snow-covered back road in Virginia, an elderly man slowly cleared the entrance to his barn. His hands, reddened rough from the cold, worked steadily. Every motion left a mark, a trail through the frozen world, evidence of effort and survival. He paused often, admiring the quiet beauty around him. Fields dusted with frost, trees robed in ice, sunlight filtering through clouds to cast a soft, golden glow. In small towns, neighbors helped each other navigate buried ways and sidewalks. Shovels scraped against ice, creating winding trails from one front door to the next. Voices rose over the gentle scrape of metal, warm and steady. "Here, let me help you with that. Careful with that drift. It's heavier than it looks." Every word, every gesture, became part of a shared narrative of survival, echoing down snow-packed streets with gentle reassurance. Even nature seemed to partake in this rhythm. Birds hopped across newly exposed ground, pecking at seeds and insects hidden beneath the snow. The wind, once wild and fierce, now whispered softly through branches, guiding the ear toward the return of life. Across the country, these trails, both literal and figurative, told a story that even in the face of such a monstrous storm, the quiet, persistent strength of humanity could carve its own path forward. As night began to fall, the cold deepened once more, but it no longer held the same terror. The blizzard had passed, leaving behind snow that glimmered in the fading light, streets slowly becoming passable, and quiet reunions between communities. Now warmth became the focus, both literal and emotional. In homes across the South, fires glowed softly in fireplaces, casting long dancing shadows on walls edged with frost. The scent of burning wood mingled with the sharp, clean air drifting in from open windows where snow still clung stubbornly. Families gathered around hearths, sipping hot cocoa or tea, their fingers wrapped around steaming mugs. Conversation was soft, filled with reflection, brimming with gratitude for safety and life. In small towns, churches and community centers opened their doors to those who had lost power or whose homes had been hardest hit. Lanterns and candles created pools of golden light in large rooms, volunteers offering hot meals, sharing nourishment and companionship. Stories of endurance and survival were exchanged, some with humor, some with solemnity, but all with a quiet pride, a solidarity born from shared adversity. Children, tired but still wide-eyed, curled under blankets, telling tales of adventures through snow banks and tunnels. Their laughter mingled with the crackle of fires and the low murmur of adults, creating a comforting symphony of life returning after days of silence. Even outside, the warmth of human activity was visible. Smoke spiraled from chimneys, rising through rooftops. The soft glow of lanterns marked pathways carved through snowdrifts. Neighbors helped each other carry supplies back indoors. Every gesture, no matter how small, became a thread in the tapestry of recovery, weaving a sense of resilience that the storm had tested but not broken. As night settled over the snow-blanketed world, there was a collective sense that the blizzard had changed landscapes and routines, but it had also revealed the enduring glow of community hope and human warmth. As the night deepened, the world outside transformed into a quiet cathedral of ice and snow. Horizons that had once been sharp and familiar now blended seamlessly with low-hanging clouds, creating an endless expanse of soft white and silver. Shadows stretched long and gentle over snow banks, bending the glow of streetlight into a soft halo that seemed to pulse with calm. In a small Vermont town, a man stepped outside and walked slowly along a path cleared earlier in the day. Each breath formed pale clouds, mingling with the stillness around him. The crunch of his boots on packed snow was the only sound, yet it felt harmonious, a rhythm that matched the frozen serenity perfectly. He paused on a small hilltop, looking out over snow-dusted fields. Each tree was outlined in frost, each fence half-buried, each building softened by ice. The sight was both heartbreaking and beautiful, a reminder of nature's power and artistry. Nearby, children lay on smooth, untouched snow, moving arms and legs in careful motions to carve perfect snow angels. Their laughter rose softly into the night air, faint but clear, harmonizing with the distant, fading howl of the wind. Even the animals seemed to pause and watch. Birds perched cautiously, and occasionally a deer appeared at the edge of the tree line, its coat dusted with frost. Inside homes, families reflected quietly on the storm's passing. Some wrote notes to friends and neighbors, telling of nights of isolation and the first glimmers of dawn. Others simply sat by the fire, letting the warmth seep into chilled bones, the silence providing space for gratitude, and gentle contemplation. The storm had been a force without equal, but now in its aftermath, the nation saw not only what was lost, but what had survived. The white horizons reminded everyone that survival was more than enduring hardship. It was also about noticing the fragile beauty and subtle wonders that remain. In small towns scattered across the south and east, the blizzard had left its delicate, crystalline signature. Roofs glittered with thick layers of ice. Streets once buzzing with the hum of activity now looked carved, raw, and almost magical. Each tree branch was encased in a shimmering shell, bending under the weight but standing resilient, a testament to nature's quiet strength. In a quiet Alabama neighborhood, a woman stepped onto her porch and took a deep breath, the sharp, clean air filling her lungs. Her exhale formed a cloud, mingling with the gentle snowflakes that still clung to rooftops. She smiled faintly, watching a cat pick its way carefully across the icy edge of the yard, each step esting with measured patience. Nearby, children ran between snowdrifts. Their muffled laughter rang out like little bells against the silence. Down the street, a group of neighbors worked together, clearing a narrow path through the snow. Their shovels scraped rhythmically against the hard minus-packed drifts, sending small showers of white into the afternoon light. Words were few but warm, punctuated by laughter and encouragement. "Watch that spot. That one's heavier than it looks. Almost there. Just a few more steps." Across towns, this pattern repeated. People emerged slowly, cautiously, reconnecting with one another in shared effort and celebration. Yes, the storm had isolated them, but it had also given them a renewed appreciation for their homes, their streets, and the fragile, precious ties that bound them together. Everywhere, I caught the fading light, turning ordinary landscapes into shimmering dreamscapes. Even in the hardship there was beauty. Even in the weariness there was hope. The nation was scarred, tired, but remarkably alive, moving steadily toward recovery and quiet reflection in the aftermath. As the sun began to dip low once more, the snow-blanketed world took on new hues. Faint pinks and golds crept across the horizon, reflected in icy rooftops and frozen fields, turning them into mosaics of soft color. Shadows lengthened over snow banks, creating soft, sculpted shapes that seemed almost alive in the fading light. In a small Georgia town, families emerged from their homes to witness the quiet spectacle. Parents held the hands of children bundled in layers of woolen scarves, pointing at the delicate patterns of frost on windows, the shimmer of ice on fences, and the way the last rays of sunlight danced on frozen puddles. The scene was peaceful, surreal, a moment of stillness after days of the storm's relentless motion and noise. In suburbs, people tended to their animals. Cows huddled in barns, horses stamped softly for warmth, dogs picked their way cautiously across snow-covered yards, leaving fleeting paw prints that would soon be erased by the whispering wind. Every motion, however small, seemed to breathe life back into the frozen landscape. Wood smoke once again began to curl gently from chimneys, drifting upward toward the twilight sky. The faint scent of burning wood mingled with the fresh air, offering a subtle warmth that seemed to seep into bones chilled by days of bitter cold. Conversations floated across porches and streets. Voices were soft but steady. Neighbors checked on each other. Friends shared storm stories. Laughter spilled out, gentle as melting snow. Even in these quiet, lingering moments, the nation felt the weight of what had passed. Yet there was also a growing sense of wonder, a recognition that within the destruction and hardship there remained a fragile, enduring beauty as delicate as frost and as resilient as those who had weathered the storm. As night approached, towns and countryside alike settled into a gentle rhythm. The blizzard's fury had ended, leaving a landscape of silent splendor. Snowdrifts reflected the last of the twilight's glow, the crystalline sheen of ice giving rooftops and trees a delicate sparkle, like countless tiny lanterns scattered across the earth. In the Tennessee countryside, neighbors gathered along a partially cleared road, working together to free a stuck vehicle. Shovels dug into snow banks, hands read and draw, laughter punctuating the effort. When the car finally rolled free, a cheer rose softly into the cold night air. A quiet victory, a small triumph in the long struggle against the storm's lingering grip. In suburban towns, children played cautiously on now passable sidewalks. Snow forts and tunnels that had partially collapsed in the snowfall were carefully rebuilt. Their voices rang out, soft but clear, mingling with the gentle rustle of wind through frozen fields. Each giggle, each shout, seemed to affirm life's persistence. The way it always rises, even after overwhelming force tries to push it down. In homes, families lit candles, stoked stoves, and shared meals. Warmth spread in small, cozy waves from food, from fire, from companionship, and from the shared understanding that they had all weathered something extraordinary. The weight of fear and uncertainty began to lift, replaced by gratitude and reflection. Even in the distance, nature seemed to partake in these quiet victories. Birds returned to perch on branches, pecking at seeds left in the snow. Streams gurgled softly under thinning ice, their gentle babble a subtle reminder that even hidden beneath frozen layers, life continued to flow. As the first stars began to twinkle, scattered across the clear, cold expanse of the night sky, the nation, though weary and battered, unbroken, began to feel something profound. The storm had passed, and in its wake, it had revealed a fragile beauty in resilience, in hope, and in survival. Night fell slowly, wrapping the nation in a quiet, restorative darkness. For the first time in nearly a week, the wind died down to a gentle whisper, carrying no threat, only the memory of the storm's roar. Snow lay thick and even over rooftops, fields, and forests, reflecting the scattered glow of streetlight and the faint light of stars overhead. In a small Pennsylvania town, families gathered indoors, their faces flushed from shoveling and clearing pathways. A fire crackled in the fireplace, filling the room with warmth and the comforting scent of burning wood. Children, tired but content, curled under blankets, their eyes heavy with the length of the day and the gentle exhaustion that followed. Outside, the world was silent, broken only by the occasional creak of snow settling on a roof, or the distant snap of a branch releasing its burden of ice. Neighbors checked on one another, knocking lightly on doors, exchanging hushed words. "Everything all right over here? Need any extra firewood? We found some eggs and milk, you might need some." Every gesture, small but significant, Ina stitched the sense of connection into the community, fragile but strengthening with every shared act of care. The blizzard had separated them, yet it had also reminded everyone of the value of reaching out, of sharing warmth both physical and emotional. Even nature seemed to pause in reverence. Icicles hung like crystal ornaments, reflecting the dim light. The snow muffled all sound, creating a soft, all-encompassing quiet. Animals that had hidden in barns and underbrush began to move cautiously, reclaiming their spaces. For countless families, this first calm night felt almost sacred. They sat by firelight, sipping tea or cocoa, listening to the distant, gentle hum of the world waking from the storm's grip. Outside, the snow glittered under the faint starlight, a reminder of the storm's power and the enduring beauty of the peace that followed. By the next morning, the first signs of the thaw began to appear. The sun, low but persistent, reflected off the snow and ice, warming them slightly. Meltwater formed tiny streams along streets and driveways, trickling over hidden snow banks, creating a soft, gentle gurgle that filled the air with a soothing rhythm. In a small West Virginia town, residents walked carefully along the paths they had carved through the deep snow. Each step revealed glimpses of the ground beneath brown earth, black pavement, hints of a world that was months away from spring. People paused often, watching icicles drip slowly from eaves, tiny droplets catching the sunlight like liquid crystal. Children explored the edges of melting snow banks, their boots sinking into softened snow. Some splashed in shallow puddles, the icy water shocking but exhilarating, their laughter sprinkling the quiet streets. Even in the aftermath of weeks of relentless cold, ice playfulness returned, a stark contrast to the long, silent days of the blizzard. Farmers checked on animals, brushing away ice and snow, ensuring warmth and food. Birds hopped cautiously along thawing ground, pecking at exposed seeds. The gentle hum of sound human-animal, the subtle movement of water reminded everyone that life endured, even after the harshest trials. In homes, the sense of cooking rose more freely, as stoves could work without constant worry. Families shared meals and stories, the rhythm of conversation and laughter building quietly, steadily, as if affirming that the long winter test had not broken them. Even the wind, once a roaring, terrifying presence, barely stirred. It carried a hint of dampness and a gentle warmth, soft enough to lift spirits rather than sting skin. The nation, still draped in white, was beginning to breathe again. By mid-morning, towns and cities began to reconnect. Streets that had been buried under great mounds of snow were slowly cleared, forming fragile bridges between isolated homes and communities. The sounds of footsteps, the scrape of shovels on ice, and the starting of engines returned in soft, rhythmic waves, echoing the country's slow awakening. In a quiet North Carolina village, neighbors walked along the paths they had carved together, exchanging greetings and laughter. Children ran ahead, their boots crunching on melting snow, creating temporary patterns that would soon vanish under thawing drifts. Adults followed more deliberately, sharing small smiles and words of relief. "Good to see you safe. We're all getting by slowly, but getting by." Bridges, both literal and metaphorical, became lifelines. In small towns, residents helped each other carry supplies, firewood, groceries, blankets from house to house. The snow, though still deep, was no longer a barrier but a landscape through which a community could travel, slowly reconnecting lives that had been separated by the storm. Even nature partook in this gentle revival. Icicles dripped in gentle rhythms, nourishing small streams that began to buzz with movement. Birds returned cautiously in flocks, pecking at thawing ground, filling the air with faint calls. The sun climbed higher and warmer, reflecting off snow and patches of light, revealing details that had been hidden behind the blizzard's veil. In homes, families prepared meals together. The sense of warmth and food mingled with the fresh winter air. Fires burned steadily, conversation flowed naturally, weaving the threads of daily life back into the day's fabric. Even the smallest gestures, a shared cup of cocoa, a helping hand, a word of comfort, became significant, silent proof of human resilience. As the nation began to navigate these new roads through the ice and snow, the sense of isolation began to fade. Life, once strapped beneath the white, was slowly returning, gentle, cautious, full of quiet hope. By late afternoon, a gentle thaw began to transform the world into a place of shimmering contrasts. Snow that had been pure, unbroken white now revealed shades of gray and silver where earth and ice met, and puddles of meltwater reflected the fading sunlight like liquid mirrors. The aftermath of the storm was still evident, but it was now aimed with the first signs of renewal. In small Kentucky towns, families ventured farther from home, carefully traversing snow banks that had begun to soften. Children laughed, their boots splashing in shallow pools of meltwater, the reflections shimmering, undistorting with every ripple. Parents walked alongside them, careful but quietly joyful, marveling at the resilience of their children and their community. Farmers checked their fields, noting the weight of ice on branches and fences. Wild damage was evident. They also saw hope. Streams began to flow under thin layers of ice. Soil slowly reappeared from beneath the snow, and hardy plants that had survived the storm's icy grip. Life, though tested, remained patient and persistent. In urban areas, streets cleared by snowplows became channels of human connection once more. Neighbors greeted each other along sidewalks, helping carry groceries or simply exchanging stories of survival. Cars moved slowly along newly opened roads, the hum of engines like soft music against the quiet backdrop of ice minus latent reason still minus drifting snow. Even the sky seemed to reflect this fragile renewal. Clouds thinned, allowing pale light to filter down, glinting off frozen surfaces, highlighting the subtle artistry of ice and snow. Shadows stretched long across streets, sketching the outlines of the transformed landscape in gentle grace. In the midst of it all, people began to sense something profound, that surviving the aftermath of a storm was not just about enduring cold and snow, but about recognizing the beauty and resilience that lay hidden within it. And in these glimmers of renewal, the nation found a quiet, steady hope, a promise that life would continue to rise, even after the fiercest storms. As evening approached, the melting snow and cleared paths allowed people to venture farther than they had in days. Roads that had been buried under snow banks now revealed themselves cautiously, like shy rivers of asphalt flowing through the frozen landscape. Families, travelers, and neighbors took tentative steps along these new routes. Their movements were thoughtful, careful, but filled with a quiet excitement for freedom. In a small Tennessee town, a family made their way home from a temporary shelter, their boots crunching softly on packed snow. The father carried firewood. The mother held the youngest child tightly, while older siblings started ahead, eager to explore the softened snowbanks around their house. Each step, though slow, felt like reclaiming a familiar world that had been hidden by the storm's relentless weight. Along highways and country roads, stranded vehicles were slowly freed. Drivers who had huddled in icy cars for nights now steered cautiously toward safety, their headlights cutting narrow beams through the last remnants of snowfall. Travelers exchanged warm greetings and smiles as they passed, a silent acknowledgement of shared endurance and relief. In urban areas, neighbors helped each other clear debris and ice from sidewalks, creating fragile networks of safety and accessibility. Conversations were soft, filled with reflection but carried warmth. "We made it through. It's been a long week, but we're here." Even nature seemed to breathe again. Icicles continued to drip, nourishing small streams that glistened in the fading sunlight. Birds hopped and chirped on exposed ground, and occasionally a deer picked its way cautiously across thawing fields. Life, though tentative, was persistent, reclaiming its place. For each person navigating this newly revealed world, the journey home, whether to a physical house or a sense of normalcy, was more than a return. It was a reminder that after a storm's overwhelming force, resilience and hope could guide every cautious step forward. As night fell, towns and small cities settled into a quiet rhythm. Snow, though still deep in many areas, had softened along streets and sidewalks cleared by snowplows and patient hands. Streetlights had reflected off icy surfaces, casting warm golden halos against the cold blue of fading daylight. In a small Georgia town, families ventured out once more, walking carefully along cleared paths. Children, bundled in layers, chased each other in play, leaving fleeting impressions in the softened snow. Adults followed more slowly, stopping to help neighbors, carry supplies, or simply admire the fragile beauty around them. Each step taken in the snow seemed measured, intentional, and filled with quiet victory. Along suburban sidewalks, conversations drifted softly on the cold night air. "Are you all right?" "Yes, thank you. Your help yesterday made all the difference." The words were gentle, but they carried warmth, a reaffirmation that connection could be restored, even after isolation. In rural areas, the soft drip of melting icicles and the gurgle of streams under thinning ice created a subtle symphony. Birds hopped across thawing patches, pecking at exposed seeds, while animals occasionally ventured into open spaces. Life was slowly, step by step, sound by sound, reclaiming the land. In homes, families built fires and shared meals, the scent of warm food mixed with the faint smell of wood smoke, filling rooms as people reflected on their survival. There was a quiet pride, mingled with awe at the storm's immensity and a gentle gratitude for the small joys of safety, companionship, and resilience. Even the night sky seemed softer, clearer, as the storm's clouds finally dissipated. Stars began to twinkle through the fading twilight, quiet witnesses to the slow, deliberate recovery of a nation. In the silence of those streets and fields, hearts beat with calm hope, carrying a quiet recognition that life always endured, gentle and beautiful. As the dark deepened, a serene glow began to appear across town and country landscapes. Lanterns, candles, and fireplaces lit up windows, casting soft light onto snow-packed streets and glimmering drifts. This glow created small pockets of warmth and safety, tiny beacons in a white world. In a small North Carolina village, neighbors gathered outside a home, holding lanterns to guide an elderly couple safely along a snow-covered path. The snow reflected the light, multiplying it, giving the impression that the entire street was dotted with tiny stars. Children bounced alongside, their scarves and gloves bright against the silver landscape, laughter sprinkling the night air with cautious joy. Along country roads, headlights cut through the lingering snowfall, their beams moving slowly, carefully over icy pavement. Drivers waved at neighbors clearing paths or tending to animals, a silent acknowledgement of shared survival and patience. Even the smallest gestures, opening a door, lending a shovel, offering a warm drink, mattered, weaving the sense of community tightly into the still-frozen world. In homes, families gathered around firelight, sharing storm stories, recalling the long nights of huddling indoors. The warmth of conversation blended with the warmth of flames, filling spaces that had once been quiet and cold. Outside, the soft whisper of melting icicles and the trickle of running water added a gentle background to these moments, a reminder to all who listened that life, though tested, continued. The snow, still thick, littered under lantern light, looking almost magical, a silent witness to both nature and human resilience. And in this calm, glowing world, there was a sense of connection, a gentle victory, and a beauty that persisted even after the fiercest storms. As the night deepened, the wind that had once been fierce and relentless faded to a gentle whisper. It flowed over snow-dusted fields, through ice-laden trees, brushed over rooftops, rustling a few exposed branches with a tender touch. The storm was over, but its presence lingered in the memories etched into the white landscape and the hearts of those who had endured it. In a small Pennsylvania town, residents walked quietly along cleared pathways, listening to the wind's gentle sighs as it wound through streets and alleys. Each gust seemed to carry a faint reminder of the storm's power, yet it held no threat now. Instead, it felt like nature exhaling a soft lullaby for the survivors. Children wandered near snow banks, building miniature forts and sculptures, their hands cold but spirits warm. Each thrown snowball or dug tunnel echoed faintly in the silent evening, harmonizing with the wind's gentle murmurs. Their bright, fleeting laughter seemed to coax the earth itself into quietly celebrating life's persistence. Along country roads, cars moved cautiously, tires crunching softly on packed snow. Drivers waved at neighbors clearing paths or carrying supplies, exchanging silent smiles that spoke of shared endurance and mutual relief. Even in small gestures, the bonds of community were strengthened, made stronger in the fragile calm. In homes, fireplaces crackled steadily, sending warm light and comforting scents into every corner. Families shared quiet conversation, sipped tea or cocoa, their eyes wandering to the patterns of frost on windows, marveling at the intricate artistry the storm had left behind. Outside, the wind whispered, carrying memories and comfort, reminding everyone that this world, though changed, was still alive, patient, full of quiet promise. The next morning, soft golden light spilled over the snow-covered landscape, revealing the intricate textures the storm had etched into the world. Snowdrifts curved like frozen waves, branches glittered under thin sheaths of ice, and snow muffled every sound save for the occasional crunch of a cautious step. In a small Vermont village, residents moved slowly along cleared paths. Each step was a reminder of the storm's intensity and the quiet victory of survival. Neighbors paused to talk to one another, their voices low but warm. It's amazing how different everything looks. Yes, but beautiful in its own way. Children explored the edges of melting snow banks, discovering hidden textures beneath the snow. The faint gurgle of meltwater trickled softly along sidewalks and gutters, creating little streams that caught the light. Even the tiniest sounds, the tentative chirp of a bird, the scrape of a shovel, the drip of an icicle seemed amplified in the vast, quiet landscape. Along country roads, families completed errands and returned from shelters, carrying groceries and supplies, carefully navigating softened snow banks. Every gesture a helping hand, a shared laugh, a cautious smile became a thread weaving community, resilience, and the gentle rhythm of emerging life. In Haus, warmth returned with renewed meaning. Fires glowed steadily, tea and soup simmered on stoves, conversation unfolded slowly, filled with reflection and gratitude. People marveled at the world outside, softened by snow and frost, transformed into a frozen cathedral of light and silence. The blizzard had left its mark, shaping landscapes and lives. Yet in the quiet aftermath, there was a sense of peace, a recognition that through patience, care, and small steps, the nation could navigate the snow and the echoes of its anger. By mid-morning, melting snow began to form delicate streams that wound their way through towns, fields, and forests. Meltwater trickled in thin rivulets, their gentle gurgle filling the air with a calm melody, a stark contrast to the storm's previous roar. Snow banks, once walls of white, now sloped gently toward these liquid veins, guiding them toward larger streams and rivers. In a small West Virginia valley, families walked carefully along the edges of these new waterways. Children peered into shallow channels, mesmerized by reflections of the sky and tiny whirlpools formed by the flowing water. Their laughter intertwined with the gentle babble, creating a serene harmony that traveled across the snow-dusted landscape. Farmers surveyed their land, noticing the first signs of life peeking through the melting snow. Hardy grass, frozen but unbroken, began to show hints of green. Small streams gurgled softly under thin ice, carrying away remnants of snow and ice from fields and roads. Even as the earth bore the scars of the storm, there was clear evidence of resilience, recovery, and life slowly finding its rhythm again. In towns and suburbs, meltwater shimmered on streets and sidewalks, reflecting the soft sunlight, creating fleeting flashes of light. Neighbors paused to watch, admiring the delicate beauty and subtle motion in what had once seemed endless frozen expanses. Small gestures, offering a warm drink to someone working outside, lending a shovel, or calling to check on a neighbor echoed the same rhythm, building connections as steady and flowing as the water itself. The gentle streams of meltwater were more than snow turning to water. They were symbols of transformation, movement, and quiet renewal. The nation, though still weighed down by snow and ice, could feel life stirring beneath, whispering a gentle reminder that even after the fiercest storms, the world kept flowing forward. As the sun sank lower in the sky, the snow-blanketed world took on a soft glow, softening the edges of rooftops, trees, and streets. Shadows stretched long over snowdrifts, blending with silvery light, while lingering icicles sparkled like fragile chandeliers. The day's thaw had begun to reveal textures hidden beneath the snow, yet the air remained crisp, carrying the faint, clean scent of frost and melting ice. In a small Kentucky town, families strolled along streets cleared by morning efforts, pausing to admire the serene beauty around them. Children's laughter echoed faintly as they leapt over melting snow banks, while adults shared reflective words. It's strange. Everything's still familiar, but completely changed. Yes, but there's a peacefulness to it too. In rural landscapes, streams flowed steadily under thin layers of ice, winding through fields and empty roads. Birds hopped across thawing ground, their gentle chirps mingling with the gurgle of water, creating a tranquil soundtrack. Even the wind, once biting and sharp, now moved gently, like a soft exhalation after days of fury, brushing lightly over rooftops and branches. In homes, the glow of firelight and lamps cast a comforting warmth. Families shared meals, retold stories of the storm's trials, and marveled at the subtle beauty outside their windows. The scents of baking bread, simmering soup, and hot tea blended with the soft silence of the evening, forming a cocoon of comfort and reflection. As night approached, the world seemed to pause, a collective breath after days of chaos. The storm had left its mark, Yet in this evening calm, there was an unspoken understanding life had endured. Resilience had triumphed, and even the coldest, harshest moments could give way to quiet miracles and gentle peace. The next morning, the snow-covered landscape bore subtle but powerful evidence of human endurance. Footprints crisscrossed streets, sidewalks, and fields. Some lead to neighbors' homes, others traced small trails through open spaces or along forest edges. Each imprint told a story of movement, determination, and careful navigation through a world reshaped by ice and snow. In a small Pennsylvania village, a woman walked slowly along one such trail, her boots sinking slightly with each step. She paused to watch children digging into softened snow banks, building snow tunnels and forts with bright, determined energy. Their laughter traveled softly through the crisp air, mingling with the gentle gurgle of meltwater streams flowing along streets and gutters. Neighbors emerged from homes to check on one another, offering small kindness: a loaf of bread, a warm blanket, a hand clearing a stubborn snowdrift. Conversation was quiet but filled with warmth, an exchange of gratitude and reassurance that community thrived even in the storm's aftermath. "You made it through all right?" "Yes. Thanks to you, we're doing okay." Along country roads, drivers navigated cautiously over softened snow, their tires leaving delicate tracks over partially exposed pavement. The rhythm of movement, human, animal, mechanical, stitched together a once fragmented world, creating a network where life was slowly returning to normal. Even nature seemed to join in this quiet resurgence. Birds flitted between exposed branches, small mammals ventured into open spaces, and the gentle drip of melting ice created a subtle, soothing melody that threaded between towns and fields. In every footprint, every gesture, every voice, there was a gentle reminder survival was both an individual journey and a shared experience. The storm had tested every step, yet life, in its quiet, patient way, moved forward, leaving enduring imprints of resilience. As evening approached, families across the nation glowed with soft, welcoming light. Fireplaces crackled gently, sending warmth into every corner, while the subtle scent of burning wood mingled with the aroma of simmering meals. After days of isolation and relentless cold, these moments offered a chance for quiet reflection, a pause to appreciate survival and the resilience of those around them. In a small Tennessee town, families gathered around hearths, wrapped in blankets, sipping warm drinks. Children rested their heads against parents' shoulders, their eyes heavy but alert, still captivated by the winter landscape outside. Adults exchanged soft words, retelling storm stories, small kindness, and the simple victories that made survival possible. "I never thought we'd see daylight like this again," a neighbor whispered. "And yet, here we are together." Outside, snowdrifts glittered under the soft illumination of streetlight, ice-laden trees swaying gently in a calm breeze. The wind, once a fierce, biting force, had softened to a gentle whisper, carrying the subtle sounds of life returning. Meltwater trickled quietly in gutters, streams gurgled through fields, and the occasional call of a distant bird broke the silence, all contributing to the gentle symphony of recovery. Even in this calm, the storm's influence lingered. Frozen cars, fallen branches, unshoveled snowdrifts remained as reminders of the week-long trial. Yet in every home, in every conversation, in every shared laugh, there was evidence of resilience and hope. The nation, though still marked by the blizzard, was learning to move forward slowly, steadily, with a new appreciation for warmth, light, and community. As the night deepened, families and neighbors alike felt the gentle pulse of life returning, carried on quiet moments and the comforting embrace of fireside reflection. When night fully descended, the streets of towns and cities were bathed in a soft, golden glow. Streetlight reflected off lingering patches of ice in the snow that still remained, creating a scene of serene, almost dreamlike calm. The blizzard had stripped the world down to its essence, leaving quiet streets that felt both alien and enchanting in their stillness. In a small Georgia town, neighbors ventured out once more, their breath forming faint clouds that mingled with the gentle mist of melting snow. Children ran along softened sidewalks, their mittens leaving trails in the snow, while adults followed at a slower pace, exchanging quiet greetings and smiles. Each step was cautious, but filled with a peaceful sense of victory. Life went on, even after the challenge. Along country roads, cars moved occasionally, tires crunching softly on packed snow, leaving delicate tracks. Drivers waved to each other, acknowledging shared endurance and the slow reclamation of freedom. The subtle movement of life a shoveled path, a bundle of firewood carried, a neighbor lending a hand was amplified in the silent landscape, each gesture significant in the quiet backdrop. In homes, fires burned steadily, casting flickering shadows on walls and ceilings. Families sat close, sharing meals, retelling moments from the storm, observing the beauty outside. The soft hum of melting icicles, the occasional bird call, and the gentle whisper of wind created a lullaby-like atmosphere, soothing body and mind. Even the smallest details were full of wonder: the frost flowers on windows, the glistening snowflakes clinging to branches, or the ice shimmering along rooftops. This world, though changed by the storm, was now a place of quiet magic and gentle rhythms, inviting all who witnessed it to pause, breathe, and appreciate the fragile beauty that followed hardship. The next morning brought a delicate clarity to the air. Sunlight filtered through thin clouds, glinting off icy rooftops and shimmering snowdrifts. Snow, softened by the thaw, revealed traces of the previous day's playfulness: footprints, sled tracks, and small, hurried paths carved by children exploring the transformed landscape. In a small Vermont village, laughter echoed softly down streets and yards. Children built miniature forts along snow banks, their small voices bright against the low background hum of melting snow. Parents watched with gentle smiles, guiding small hands, occasionally joining in, their laughter blending seamlessly with the children's. Neighbors emerged, exchanging quiet greetings, checking on one another. "Did you manage to clear your driveway?" "Yes, thanks to the Johnsons' help." "Yours?" Conversation was brief but warm. Every word carried reassurance, gratitude, and shared resilience. Along country roads, cars moved cautiously, tires crunching softly on softened snow banks. Drivers waved at neighbors clearing paths or lending assistance, their gestures forming a quiet network of support and solidarity. Even the wind, now mild, carried the subtle sounds of life: distant laughter, the trickle of melting ice, and birds cautiously returning to thawing ground. In homes, families shared breakfast and quiet conversation. The sense of hot coffee and baked goods mingled with the fresh air drifting in from half-minus open windows. In the steam and warmth, there was a collective sense of peaceful victory, a recognition that despite the storm's merciless force, life had endured, even flourished with patience, care, and gentle joy. As the afternoon began to fade, the snow-blanketed world took on soft, muted tones. Shadows stretched over snowdrifts, turning them into gentle hills of silver and pale blue. Sunlight, weakened by late autumn clouds, reflected faintly off ice, giving even the smallest snow banks a quiet, ethereal beauty. In a small Tennessee town, children continued to explore, their cheeks flushed, scarves trailing behind them. They built snow tunnels and small forts along sidewalks and yards, pausing occasionally to marvel at tiny icicles forming under eaves. Adults followed more slowly, carrying supplies or helping younger children navigate ice and meltwater. Each movement was thoughtful, cautious, but filled with the quiet excitement of a world slowly coming back to life. Along country lanes, vehicles moved carefully, headlights illuminating roads newly cleared by snowplows and neighbors' efforts. Drivers waved to each other, quietly acknowledging survival and shared perseverance. The soft murmur of distant conversation blended with the gentle drip of melting ice and the faint calls of returning birds, creating a tranquil symphony over towns and farmlands. In homes, fires burned steadily, the sense of cooking filling warm, cozy spaces. Families gathered near windows, watching shadows and sunlight dance slowly over the snow, reflecting on the days past. Even in the silence, there was a shared understanding: life, fragile and resilient, was continuing its journey, inch by inch, step by step. As dusk deepened, the world felt both vast and intimate, a frozen, softened expanse made gentle by human warmth, endurance, and quiet joy. And in the silence of those moments, it was clear that the storm had changed much. Yet life in its gentle rhythm endured still. Beyond towns and streets, the forest lay silent, transformed by the blizzard into a winter wonderland. Branches bowed under the weight of ice and snow, shimmering in soft, diffused light like silver threads woven between trees. Every twig and bend seemed to carry a story of endurance, of bending but not breaking, of quiet, patient beauty. In a Pennsylvania clearing, a family walked cautiously into the woods. Their boots crunched softly on packed snow, each step sending tiny puffs of snow powder floating into the crisp air. Children reached out to touch frost-coated branches, their small fingers brushing over ice that sparkled like delicate glass. Every motion was gentle, as if the forest itself demanded reverence. After enduring the storm's harsh touch, the wind was mild and cool, whispering through the trees, creating a subtle melody of rustling leaves and distant dripping ice. Birds, once vanished or hidden, now hopped cautiously along branches, their gentle chirping adding a delicate harmony to the silence. Even deer emerging from shadowy woods moved with cautious grace, leaving fleeting tracks that marked their presence in this fragile world. In nearby homes, the sight of these silver woods prompted reflection. People paused to admire the storm's artistry, marveling at how nature could be both harsh and breathtakingly beautiful. Fires glowed warmly indoors, but eyes often strayed to frosted window panes, watching sunlight glitter over the white forest, capturing moments of quiet wonder that could not be hurried. The forests, like the nation itself, had endured, bent, been burdened, and transformed, and they now stood resilient, offering a refuge of stillness and beauty. And walking among them, humans felt both humility and hope, a gentle reminder that life persisted, patiently, gracefully, with quiet strength. As night fell over the snow-covered land, a gentle quiet settled over towns, fields, and forests. The world seemed suspended between the lingering memory of the storm and the soft promise of calm. Streetlights cast golden pools on icy streets, while windows glowed warmly with the flicker of firelighted lamps. Snowdrifts, softened by the day's thaw, reflected the light, giving the night an almost magical stillness. In a small Georgia town, families strolled along partially cleared streets, savoring the quiet. Children paused to peer into frozen puddles, mesmerized by reflections of the sky and nearby lights, while adults carried groceries or firewood. Their movements were unhurried, filled with a peaceful contentment. Each step, each gesture, reinforced a collective feeling the storm had passed, and life, fragile but persistent, went on. Along country roads, vehicles moved slowly, their headlights tracing paths through softened snow banks. Drivers exchanged waves and hushed words with neighbors clearing paths, carrying supplies. In these simple exchanges, there was a sense of connection, a comfort that community had weathered the storm together and was slowly regaining its rhythm. In homes, families gathered around hearths, sharing stories and moments of quiet reflection. The sense of warm food mingled with the faint smell of wood smoke, wrapping rooms in comfort. Outside, the wind whispered gently through ice-laden trees, carrying the faint sounds of trickling water and occasional bird calls. Even the smallest details, the frost flowers on windows, the glimmer of snow on fences, the distant glow of a lantern contributed to the atmosphere of serene recovery. In this long, gentle night, the nation seemed to breathe collectively. The echoes of the storm still lingered, but the quiet, soft rhythm of life returning to normal offered assurance, hope, and the comforting knowledge that resilience, though tested, endured. Along the edges of rivers and streams, melting snow revealed the delicate contours of frozen banks. Ice clung to reeds and rocks, forming intricate patterns that glistened in the pale morning light. Water, though slowed by lingering ice, flowed steadily, carrying away races of the storm, whispering a continuous, gentle song of renewal. In a small Vermont town, children approached a river cautiously, their boots crunching softly on packed snow. They peered into the shallow flow, mesmerized by the clear, cold water and the way sunlight danced on the ripples. Parents stood nearby, eyes following every motion, offering guidance and soft words of comfort. "Walk carefully. The ice is still slippery there. Look how the sunlight makes the water sparkle. Isn't it beautiful? Along country trails, neighbors walked side by side, sharing small stories and supplies. Melting snow revealed hidden textures, frozen footprints, delicate ice layers, and occasional seedlings poking through. Every observation, every gesture reinforced the growing awareness life, tenacious and patient, was finding its rhythm again. Even wildlife cautiously rame Ines emerged. Birds fluttered along thawing edges, dipping their beaks into flowing water, while deer stepped lightly across softened fields. The subtle symphony of movement, water, animal, human footsteps created a gentle rhythm that echoed across the snow-dusted landscape. In nearby homes, families paused to watch the serene scene. Fires burned steadily, but eyes often strayed to windows, drawn to the tranquil beauty of the riverbanks and the slow, persistent flow of life. In that moment, the memory of the storm still lingered, but it was tempered by gratitude, and the gentle assurance that even after the most violent blizzards, the world continued, patiently, gently, beautifully. As the day waned, shadows stretched long over the snow-covered landscape, softening the lines of rooftops, trees, and snowdrifts. The sun, hanging low in the sky, cast a soft glow that reflected off ice, turning ordinary streets and fields into tapestries of shimmering lightened shadow. The air remained crisp, but there was a subtle warmth in the fading sunlight, a hint of winter's harsh grip slowly retreating. In a small Tennessee town, children played along softened sidewalks, their laughter drifting softly on the quiet evening. Adults walked alongside them, carrying supplies or tending to small chores. Their movements were calm and measured. Every gesture and outstretched hand, a shared smile, a word of comfort was amplified in the low, reflective atmosphere. Along country roads, vehicles moved cautiously over softened snow banks, headlights tracing the contours of drifts. Drivers waved to neighbors working outside, clearing lingering ice or checking on animals. Each interaction, though brief, reinforced the delicate web of community and resilience woven during the storm. In homes, fires glowed steadily, filling rooms with warmth and comfort. Families gathered around tables, sharing meals, stories, and moments of quiet reflection. The sense of soup and baking bread mingled with the soft crackle of flames, creating an atmosphere that was both soothing and intimate. Even nature seemed to pause and breathe. The soft whisper of melting icicles, the distant call of returning birds, and the gentle rustle of wind through frost-laden trees formed a subtle lullaby, guiding all who listened toward peace, rest, and gentle contemplation. In these evening hours, life, both fragile and resilient, quietly reaffirmed its presence, offering assurance and hope that even after immense hardship, there was beauty, warmth, and continuity. Night fell, draping towns and countryside in a deep, velvety silence. Snowdrifts, softened and drowned by the day's thaw, reflected the soft glow of streetlight, creating pools of golden light that contrasted with the cool blue shadows of evening. The air carried the scent of frost and the faint, clean smell of melting ice, mingled with the subtle warmth of chimney smoke and the comforting aroma of home-cooked meals. In a small Georgia village, families walked carefully along cleared sidewalks. Children darted from one snowbank to another, scarves trailing behind them, leaving fleeting trails in the softened snow. Adults moved more deliberately, offering guidance, carrying supplies, or simply sharing hushed words with neighbors. Each step, each gesture, seemed to stitch the community closer together, a gentle reaffirmation of connection and shared endurance. Along country roads, vehicles moved slowly, headlights cutting through the night. Drivers exchanged waves and brief words, with neighbors shoveling paths or lending a hand. Their interactions were short, but filled with warmth and gratitude. In these simple exchanges, the spirit of community shone through, as powerful and patient as the slowly melting snow beneath their feet. In homes, fires burned steadily, casting flickering, dancing light on walls and ceilings. Families gathered together, sharing meals, retelling moments of courage and care from the storm. Outside, the faint whisper of melting icicles and the occasional call of a bird added a soothing rhythm to the night. Even the smallest details, the frost flowers on windows, the glimmer of ice on fences, or the distant glow of a lantern created a sense of serene wonder, a gentle reminder that this world, though changed, was resilient, gentle, and alive. On these silent streets and in softly lit homes, hearts beat with peaceful gratitude. Life, though tested, endured, patient, steady, quiet, and beautiful. As the night deepened, the moon rose over the snow-covered landscape, casting a silvery glow that transformed the world into a silent, magical spectacle. Rooftops, streets, and fields shimmered under its light, turning ordinary snowdrifts into glistening, undulating sculptures. The air was crisp and still, carrying the faint scent of frost and the soft whisper of distant, melting streams. In a small Vermont village, children bundled in warm layers tiptoed along softened sidewalks. Their muffled laughter was absorbed by the thick, snowy air. Parents followed behind, carrying lanterns and supplies, their movements careful but filled with a quiet pride in their families and community's resilience. The moon's gentle glow reflected off icicles, of frost-laden branches, creating a delicate sparkle that seemed almost alive. Along country roads, cars moved cautiously, headlights carving narrow paths through softened snowbanks. Drivers waved to neighbors, clearing paths or sharing small tasks, exchanging silent acknowledgments of endurance and care. The network of human connection, built through days of shared struggle, remained strong, visible quietly in these gestures of mutual support. In homes, fireplaces crackled, the sense of warm food filling the air. Families gathered near windows, gazing out at the silver world, reflecting on weeks of trial and the fragile beauty that had followed. Even nature's subtle sounds, the drip of melting icicles, the distant hoot of an owl, the whisper of wind through frozen trees played like a lullaby, soothing body and soul. In the moon's soft, glowing embrace, the nation felt a quiet, shared peace. The storm had left its mark, yet on this still, silver night, life endured, gentle, patient, full of quiet miracles. Before dawn, a pale light began to spread across the horizon, softening the night's shadows and revealing the delicate contours of snow-covered rooftops, fields, and forests. Frost clung to every surface, glimmering faintly like tiny stars left by the passing storm. The world felt silent, suspended in the gentle anticipation of a new day. In a small Pennsylvania town, families moved softly within their homes. Children, still sleepy, peered through frosted windows at the silver landscape, while parents moved deliberately, checking supplies, ensuring warmth for their households. The air carried the faint scent of wood smoke, mingling with the crispness of lingering frost, creating an atmosphere of calm, almost sacred quiet. Outside, small animals ventured cautiously from their hiding places. Birds hopped across thawing patches, pecking at seeds exposed by melting snow. Squirrels scampered along fence lines, their tiny paws leaving delicate imprints in softened snow banks. Every motion, small and careful, was proof that life's quiet rhythm was returning to the world. Along country roads, neighbors began the slow process of clearing lingering ice and snow. Shovels scraped gently on sidewalks, voices drifted on the cold morning air, low but filled with warmth. "How did you fare last night?" Or, "All right, thanks for checking." Even as the storm's scars lingered, piled snowdrifts, fallen branches, as the pavement, the first light of morning brought a sense of hope. Life, steady and patient, was stirring again. The nation, though still shaped by the blizzard's force, was beginning to move forward with cautious steps and a new appreciation for the quiet, enduring beauty of survival. As the sun rose higher, its pale rays reflected off ice, casting a warm glow over rooftops, streets, and open fields. Snowdrifts sparkled with thousands of tiny prisms, each catching the light, scattering fleeting glimmers across the landscape. The cold remained, crisp and invigorating, but softened by the sun's gentle embrace filtering through thinning clouds. In a small Kentucky village, children hurried along streets cleared just enough to be passable, their boots crunching softly on softened snow. They paused at the edges of puddles formed by meltwater, watching tiny ripples distort reflections of the glowing sky. Parents followed more deliberately, carrying groceries or supplies, their breath forming quiet clouds in the fresh morning air. Neighbors exchanged warm greetings across streets and dark doorways, pausing to help each other clear stubborn ice or move snow that had resisted the first thaw. Simple gestures, a smile, an outstretched hand, a shared laugh took on amplified meaning in these moments, underscoring the strength of community and shared endurance. Along rivers and streams, ice began to thin, revealing flowing water beneath. Birds approached cautiously to drink, their gentle chirps harmonizing with the soft gurgle of melting snow streams. Even the wind moved with restraint, whispering through trees and open fields, carrying the faint promise of continued renewal. In homes, families paused by windows, taking in the serene scene, sipping warm drinks, reflecting on the tranquil beauty left in the storm's wake. Fires crackled softly, filling rooms with warmth and comfort, while sunlight played subtly on frost and ice, creating an atmosphere of peaceful wonder. Life, though marked by hardship, moved forward with gentle strength and enduring grace. By late morning, softened snow and carefully cleared streets revealed fragile pathways between homes and communities. Each pathway, though still flanked by snow banks and patches of ice, allowed families to reconnect with neighbors, share supplies, exchange words of comfort. The sense of isolation that had pressed down heavily during the storm was slowly dissipating, replaced by a cautious, quiet camaraderie. In a small Pennsylvania town, children ran along these paths, their scarves fluttering, boots leaving faint impressions in the snow. Adults followed behind, carrying groceries, firewood, or blankets, pausing to help those struggling with loads. A shared laugh, a brief conversation, or an outstretched hand became meaningful markers of human resilience and connection in a world still draped in white. Along country lanes, cars moved slowly, leaving tracks in softened snow. Travelers nodded to each other, acknowledging the small victory of movementing, the return of daily rhythms. Even small gestures, a wave, a brief stop to check on a neighbor, passing along extra supplies became symbols of endurance, care, and the subtle rebuilding of community. In homes, warmth from hearths and stoves invited quiet reflection. Families watched children play along softened paths, sunlight glittering on melting ice, illuminating delicate frost flowers clinging to windows. The world outside seemed almost magical, a testament to survival and the patient, gentle reclamation of life after chaos. With each step along these paths, each shared smile or helping hand, a sense of hope was reinforced. Though the storm had left its mark, the land and its people were slowly awakening, reconnecting, and moving forward with gentle, deliberate grace. By mid-afternoon, the thaw deepened, softening snow banks and revealing patches of earth, roadways, and hidden streams. Snow no longer dominated the landscape but highlighted the gentle curves and textures beneath, transforming familiar streets and fields into a softer, more inviting world. In a small West Virginia town, children explored the edges of melting snow banks, their boots leaving temporary impressions that vanished quickly as the snow softened further. They paused to watch icicles drip steadily, tiny streams of water catching sunlight, scattering delicate glimmers to the ground. Parents followed at a measured pace, watching and admiring the subtle beauty around them. Neighbors emerged, moving between houses, offering small kindness, carrying firewood, lending shovels, or simply sharing a smile. Conversation was quiet but warm. The ice is finally giving way. Yes, look how the sunlight reflects off it. Almost magical. Along country roads, the thaw created little streams and ditches and fields. Birds hopped cautiously along exposed ground, chirping softly, while deer ventured from the shadows, stepping lightly over softened snow. The gentle symphony of melting ice, flowing water, and cautious life added a delicate rhythm to the afternoon, a soothing reminder of recovery and renewal. In homes, fires burned steadily, the sense of simmering meals spreading through rooms. Families paused to look out windows, marveling at the changing landscape and the subtle signs of life reclaiming its place. In the gentle thaw, there was a quiet assurance that even after the fiercest storms, time and patience would bring life back, restoring calm, beauty, and hope to every corner of the world. As the sun began to sink once more, the snow-blanketed world took on the soft hues of twilight. Shadows stretched over snowdrifts and streets, blending into gentle gradients of blue and gray. The air remained crisp, carrying the scent of wood smoke and the faint smell of thawing earth, while the fading sunlight glimmered weakly on ice clinging delicately to rooftops and branches. In a small Kentucky town, families walked slowly along softened sidewalks, pausing to admire the interplay of light and shadow on the snow. Children slid cautiously on thin patches of ice in driveways, their laughter low, mingling with the gentle whisper of melting snow. Adults moved at an easerly pace, helping neighbors or exchanging hushed, reflective words about the storm's aftermath. Along country roads, headlights traced slow paths through softened snow banks, drivers nodding to those clearing paths or checking on animals. Small acts lending a shovel, carrying supplies, or simply offering a comforting smile strengthened the bonds of community and resilience, reminding everyone that shared endurance strengthened the human spirit. In homes, the comforting glow of firelight illuminated rooms filled with warmth and the faint sense of cooking. Families gathered near windows, observing the subtle beauty outside, frost flowers glittering on glass, the soft glimmer of ice on fences, and the delicate sparkle of snow in the fading light. Even the gentle whisper of wind through trees seemed to hum a quiet lullaby. In this evening calm, the world felt gentle and reflective. The blizzard's fury had passed, leaving its imprint. Yet life, resilient and patient, moved on. There was a quiet confidence that even after great trials, the gentle rhythms of survival, warmth, and hope endured, wrapping the night in soft serenity. As darkness fully descended, the world lay silent under a blanket of snow, now softened under the faint glow of streetlights and windows. The air carried a subtle freshness, tinged with frost and the distant scent of wood smoke, while the occasional drip of melting icicles created a quiet, rhythmic accompaniment to the night's silence. In a small Tennessee village, families ventured out briefly, their boots crunching softly on packed snow. Children's scarves fluttered in the mild evening breeze as they paused to examine glistening layers of ice on fences or rooftops. Adults followed at a measured pace, carrying supplies, offering guidance, or simply savoring the tranquility that had replaced the storm's relentless roar. Along country roads, cars moved slowly, headlights carving narrow paths through softened snowbanks. Drivers exchanged waves and quiet greetings with neighbors, acknowledging not only survival but the regained sense of shared community. Each interaction, though simple, carried weight, reinforcing the intangible bonds woven through days of shared endurance. In homes, fires glowed steadily, casting warm, flickering light into rooms. Families huddled together, sipping tea or cocoa, sharing stories, reflecting on the subtle beauty emerging from the storm's aftermath. Outside, the gentle whisper of wind, the resminas-laden branches and the soft gurgle of distant streams formed a quiet symphony, lulling the day to a peaceful close. In these evening whispers, the nation felt a collective sigh, a recognition of endurance, survival, and life continuing with quiet grace. Even in the lingering cold and ice, there was warmth, hope, and the gentle assurance that the storm's fury had passed, leaving a world both fragile and resilient. By the next morning, a faint light began to brighten the horizon, brushing the snow-covered landscape with soft pinks and golds. The world, still quiet and reflective, seemed to hover between night and day, as if holding its breath after the storm's long ordeal. Snowdrifts shimmered, ice-laden branches sparkled, and the gentle outlines of rooftops and fields emerged in the soft glow. In a small Georgia town, families began to appear, moving slowly along partially cleared streets. Children's steps left delicate imprints in the softened snow, while adults carried supplies or helped neighbors navigate icy patches. Conversation was low but warm, punctuated by laughter and shared at the delicate beauty the storm had left behind. The sunrise looks miraculous over the fields. It's hard to believe how different everything feels now. Along country lanes, vehicles moved cautiously, headlights reflecting faintly off thawing snow and ice. Drivers waved to neighbors clearing paths or checking on animals. small gestures of solidarity and comfort. The interplay of light, ice, and snow created a quiet symphony, reminding all observers of life's fragile, persistent rhythm. In homes, warmth continued to radiate from hearths and stoves. Families paused by windows, sipping warm drinks, taking in the soft brilliance outside, reflecting on the days past. Even as the storm's traces lingered, piled snowdrifts, fallen branches, icy pavement, the silver horizon offered assurance. Life endured, slowly reclaiming its space with calm, patient beauty. In this soft morning light, the nation felt suspended between reflection and renewal, witnessing the quiet resilience of the world and the subtle, enduring magic of survival. By mid-morning, the world was fully awake, bathed in soft, pale sunlight that reflected off lingering ice and snow. The thaw had progressed, revealing gentle slopes of land streets and grass beneath lingering snow banks. A calm melody rose from the subtle movements of life, the drip of meltwater, birds hopping cautiously on exposed ground, and the occasional crunch of a footstep through softened snow. In a small Pennsylvania village, children explored newly revealed paths, their boots sinking into wet snow, examining little streams forming along sidewalks and field edges. Parents followed behind, pausing occasionally to offer guidance, gentle reminders, or quiet smiles. Every motion, every shared glance, carried the gentle weight of resilience and connection, reflecting a community slowly regaining its rhythm. Neighbors moved between houses, exchanging small gestures of support, lending tools, carrying firewood, or simply stopping to greet each other warmly. Conversation was quiet, unhurried, filled with shared acknowledgement of endurance. The worst is over. Thank goodness. Yes. But look how beautiful the light is this morning. Along country roads, vehicles moved cautiously, navigating softened snow banks, headlights catching the glint of melting ice. Wildlife cautiously returned. Birds hopped between exposed branches. Deer stepped lightly across fields. Squirrels darted along fence lines, leaving delicate imprints in thawing snow. In homes, fires glowed steadily, filling rooms with warmth and comfort. Families paused for tea or cocoa, observing the subtle, harmonious rhythm of a world slowly reclaiming its space. The storm's presence lingered in memory, but the morning's melody of water, wind, and life reminded all who listened survival had been achieved, patience rewarded, and quiet beauty persisted in the simplest moments. By late morning, melting snow revealed more of the earth's textures, the soft green of hardy grass, the dark bark of resilient trees, and the glistening surfaces of ice reflecting sunlight. The world seemed to breathe again, exhaling a gentle sigh after days of stillness and hardship. In a small West Virginia town, children explored the edges of melting snow banks, collecting icicles like fragile treasures, laughing softly as puddles formed beneath their feet. Parents watched carefully, their eyes tracing the scene's beauty and fragility while offering quiet guidance. Every motion, each cautious step, every outstretched hand was a celebration of endurance, patience, and the simple joys of survival. And neighbors ventured into each other's yards, offering small acts of support, clearing stubborn ice, lending shovels, or sharing warm drinks. Conversation, though hushed, carried warmth and gratitude. It's miraculous to see sunlight reflecting off the ice like that. Yes, even after all that snow, life always seems to find a way. Along country lanes, vehicles picked their way through softened snow banks, tire tracks soon mingling with footprints of both humans and wildlife. Birds returned to thawing branches, their gentle chirps blending with a soft gurgle of melting snow streams. Deer ventured from shadowy woods, stepping lightly over softened fields. In homes, fires glowed warmly, the sense of simmering meals inviting calm reflection. Families paused to watch sunlight's subtle interplay on frost, snow, and water, marveling at the quiet, resilient beauty of this recovering world. Even in the lingering traces of the storm, life moved forward gently, patiently with enduring grace. As the day drew to a close, dusk slowly fell, casting a soft, muted glow over the snow-blanketed world. Shadows stretched long over rooftops, fields, and forests, blending into gentle gradients of blue and silver. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of chimney wood smoke and the subtle freshness of melting snow. In a small Kentucky town, families strolled along softened sidewalks, pausing to admire the delicate interplay of light and shadow. Children ran carefully along snow banks, their laughter quiet but bright, echoing softly in the calm evening air. Adults moved at a leisurely pace, carrying firewood or helping neighbors navigate icy patches, their gestures small but profound. Along country roads, headlights traced paths through softened snow banks, drivers waving to neighbors acknowledging shared endurance and care. Each simple interaction reinforced the quiet network of connection fostered during the storm, a testament to human resilience and patience. In homes, the comforting glow of firelight illuminated rooms filled with warmth and the faint sense of simmering meals. Families gathered near windows, observing the soft glimmer of ice on trees, the faint sparkle of snowdrifts, and the gentle reflection of streetleted. Outside, the whisper of wind through frost-laden branches and the faint drip of melting icicles created a lullaby-like rhythm, inviting all toward peaceful reflection. In this twilight, the world felt gentle, contemplative, and serene. The storm's violent energy had passed, leaving a landscape softened by snow, warmed by human presence, and filled with quiet hope and enduring beauty. As darkness fully fell, the snow-blanketed world became a tapestry of shadows and soft light. Streetleted reflected off lingering ice and snow, casting golden halos on quiet streets and fields. The air was fresh, carrying the scent of frost and faint wood smoke, while the gentle drip of melting icicles added a rhythmic, calming sound to the night's silence. In a small Tennessee village, families took brief evening walks along softened sidewalks. Children's laughter was muted, blending softly with the occasional crunch of boots on snow and the faint gurgle of meltwater streams. Adults moved slowly, carrying supplies or pausing to help neighbors. Every gesture was filled with quiet care and shared resilience. Along country roads, vehicles moved cautiously, their headlights carving narrow paths through softened snow banks. Drivers exchanged nods or brief greetings with neighbors clearing paths or tending to animals, small acknowledgments that strengthened community and connection. Even nature seemed to join the calm. Birds perched cautiously on exposed branches, deer stepped lightly over softened fields, both adapting gracefully to the thawing landscape. In homes, fires glowed warmly, filling rooms with light and comfort. Families gathered near windows, sipping tea or cocoa, observing the subtle interplay of ice, snow, and shadow outside. The night's gentle sounds, the wind through trees, dripping icicles, distant bird calls created a soothing rhythm, guiding minds and hearts toward peaceful reflection. In this nightfall silence, the nation seemed to exhale. The blizzard's fury had passed, leaving a transformed but resilient world where warmth, patience, and gentle connection could flourish alongside the enduring beauty of the storm's imprint. For the sun fully rose, a pale light began to spread across the horizon, painting the snow-covered landscape with soft pinks, lavenders, and golds. In these early morning hours, the world seemed to hold its breath, suspended between the silence of night and the gentle promise of a new day. Every snowdrift, every icicle, every glistening patch of ice captured the delicate light, creating a scene both fragile and breathtaking. In a small Georgia town, families emerged quietly from their homes, moving along softened sidewalks and partially cleared streets. Children's boots left delicate imprints in the snow as they explored puddles of meltwater and shimmering ice. Adults followed behind, offering guidance, carrying supplies, or simply sharing hushed words of wonder at the beautiful spectacle around them. The sunrise makes everything look magical. It's astounding how peaceful and serene the world feels now. Along country lanes, vehicles began to move cautiously, headlights reflecting softly off thawing ice and snow. Drivers exchanged waves or brief greetings with neighbors tending to property. Small gestures symbolic of resilience and community. Birds hopped on thawing branches, their gentle chirps harmonizing with the gurgle of newly thawed streams. In nearby homes, families paused to watch the serene scene. Fires burned steadily, but eyes often strayed to windows, drawn to the tranquil beauty of the riverbanks and the slow, persistent flow of life. In that moment, the memory of the storm still lingered, but it was tempered by awe, gratitude, and the gentle assurance that even after the most violent blizzards, the world continued, patiently, gently, beautifully. By mid-morning, the world was fully awake, bathed in soft, pale sunlight that reflected off lingering ice and snow. The thaw had progressed, revealing gentle slopes of land, streets, and grass beneath lingering snow banks. A calm melody rose from the subtle movements of life, the drip of meltwater, birds hopping cautiously on exposed ground, and the occasional crunch of a footstep through softened snow. In a small Pennsylvania village, children explored newly revealed paths, their boots sinking into wet snow, examining little streams forming along sidewalks and field edges. Parents followed behind, pausing occasionally to offer guidance, gentle reminders, or quiet smiles. Every motion, every shared glance, carried the gentle weight of resilience and connection, reflecting a community slowly regaining its rhythm. Neighbors moved between houses, exchanging small gestures of support, lending tools, carrying firewood, or simply stopping to greet each other warmly. Conversation was quiet, unhurried, filled with shared acknowledgement of endurance. The worst is over, thank goodness. Yes, but look how beautiful the light is this morning. Along country roads, vehicles moved cautiously, navigating softened snow banks, headlights catching the glint of melting ice. Wildlife cautiously returned. Birds hopped between exposed branches. Deer stepped lightly across fields. Squirrels darted along fence lines, leaving delicate imprints in thawing snow. In homes, fires glowed steadily, filling rooms with warmth and comfort. Families paused for tea or cocoa, observing the subtle, harmonious rhythm of a world slowly reclaiming its space. The storm's presence lingered in memory, but the morning's melody of water, wind, and life reminded all who listened survival had been achieved, patience rewarded, and quiet beauty persisted in the simplest moments. By late morning, melting snow revealed more of the earth's textures, the soft green of hardy grass, the dark bark of resilient trees, and the glistening surfaces of ice reflecting sunlight. The world seemed to breathe again, exhaling a gentle sigh after days of stillness and hardship. In a small West Virginia town, children explored the edges of melting snow banks, collecting icicles like fragile treasures, laughing softly as puddles formed beneath their feet. Parents watched carefully, their eyes tracing the scene's beauty and fragility while offering quiet guidance. Every motion, each cautious step, every outstretched hand was a celebration of endurance, patience, and the simple joys of survival. Neighbors ventured into each other's yards, offering small acts of support, clearing stubborn ice, lending shovels, or sharing warm drinks. Conversation, though hushed, carried warmth and gratitude. It's miraculous to see sunlight reflecting off the ice like that. Yes, even after all that snow, life always seems to find a way. Along country lanes, vehicles picked their way through softened snow banks, tire tracks soon mingling with footprints of both humans and wildlife. Birds returned to thawing branches, their gentle chirps blending with the soft gurgle of melting snow streams. Deer ventured from shadowy woods, stepping lightly over softened fields. In homes, fires glowed warmly, the sense of simmering meals inviting calm reflection. Families paused to watch sunlight's subtle interplay on frost, snow, and water, marveling at the quiet, resilient beauty of this recovering world. Even in the lingering traces of the storm, life moved forward gently, patiently, with enduring grace. As the day drew to a close, dusk slowly fell, casting a soft, muted glow over the snow-blanketed world. Shadows stretched long over rooftops, fields, and forests, blending into gentle gradients of blue and silver. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of chimney wood smoke and the subtle freshness of melting snow. In a small Kentucky town, families strolled along softened sidewalks, pausing to admire the delicate interplay of light and shadow. Children ran carefully along snow banks, their laughter quiet but bright, echoing softly in the calm evening air. Adults moved at a leisurely pace, carrying firewood or helping neighbors navigate icy patches, their gestures small but profound. Along country roads, headlights traced paths through softened snow banks, drivers waving to neighbors, acknowledging shared endurance and care. Each simple interaction reinforced the quiet network of connection fostered during the storm, a testament to human resilience and patience. In homes, the comforting glow of firelight illuminated rooms, filled with warmth and the faint sense of simmering meals. Families gathered near windows, observing the soft glimmer of ice on trees, the faint sparkle of snowdrifts, and the gentle reflection of streetlight. Outside, the whisper of wind through frost-laden branches and the faint drip of melting icicles created a lullaby-like rhythm, inviting all toward peaceful reflection. In this twilight, the world felt gentle, contemplative, and serene. The storm's violent energy had passed, leaving a landscape softened by snow, warmed by human presence, and filled with quiet hope and enduring beauty.